Hey guys, I'm Eric with Extreme Terrain. In this video, I'm going to give you my review and install of this TerraFlex 2.5-inch base suspension lift kit fitting all 2018 and later Jeep Wrangler JLs. Now this kit's really going to appeal to the JL Wrangler owner out there who wants to add a few inches of lift to their Jeep, but they also want to preserve the flexibility of a true suspension lift. Now TerraFlex is one of the hottest names in off-road suspensions right now, and if you've ever worked with any of their kits or ridden on any of their kits, you would know that that reputation is well earned. Now in general, lift kits come in all sorts of configurations. The more basic setups use spacer blocks or lift blocks, and those are really an affordable way to add height to your vehicle. However, that usually comes at the cost of flexibility in more extreme off-road conditions. And of course, the more exotic kits out there will get you set up for the most extreme situations. However, you will be replacing almost everything underneath your Jeep and spending thousands of dollars to do it. Now this kit from TerraFlex is really an affordable way to kind of split that difference between the basic and the exotic by giving you a 2.5-inch height increase, which is pretty common to be able to upsize your tires and add more off-road capability without having to replace a long list of components. Now this kit basically comes with what you see on the table here in front of me. It gets its added height of 2.5 inches from using longer springs and sway bar end links. So keep in mind that if you want to reuse your factory shock absorbers, you're going to have to get a separate bracket kit that will allow you to use those, or you're going to have to get some longer aftermarket shocks to use in combination with this kit. Now the primary advantage to using a kit like this with the longer springs is that you are going to be able to preserve the ability to flex and twist your axles as you're rolling over uneven trails and roads. And what that's going to do is provide you better traction and stability, and it's going to help you keep those tires firmly planted on the ground. Now, like I mentioned a moment ago, TerraFlex really did a good job at kind of splitting the difference between basic spacer kits and the more exotic kits that are going to have you replacing a whole lot of components on your Jeep, and that's really reflected in the price as well. Currently, this kit is being offered around $800. I think that's a pretty affordable price considering what you get in terms of upgrade and ride quality and capability out on the trails. Just bear in mind that you're also going to have to either get a solution for your factory shock absorbers if you want to reuse those, or get yourself an aftermarket set of shocks. And of course, at the time you're installing a kit like this, it's a perfect time to do that kind of work. Now, speaking of installation, I'm giving this a very solid 3 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. You should budget at least 3 hours of your time to get this job done. Now, depending on your skill level and personal experience, you might be able to shave some time off of that, but I give it a full 3 wrenches primarily because anytime we're lifting our Jeep, there are safety considerations there. You want to make sure that when you get your Jeep lifted up, that you have strong floor jacks that are going to support that weight, and you also have a very usable floor jack that's going to help you manipulate your axle up and down in order to do the kinds of things that you need to do to get your springs out and get the new springs in. So with that being said, with a little bit of help from this video and some excellent documentation that comes from TerraFlex in terms of their instructions, I don't think you should have any trouble getting this kit installed. You're not going to need any exotic tools of any kind, and we'll go over those in just a second. A couple of things I want to call out is in that documentation from TerraFlex, make sure you're following all the torque specifications, and even doing so within a couple hundred miles of having this kit installed, you're going to want to check all those fittings and make sure they are torqued to spec. Also, once this is done, make sure you take your Jeep to an alignment shop and get a professional alignment done anytime you have suspension or steering work done. So let's go ahead and get started with our installation. All right, so the tools you're going to see in this installation, guys, don't forget your protective gear, some eyewear and gloves. We're going to use a pneumatic impact tool, a hand socket wrench. We're going to have 8, 13, 14, 15, 18, and 21 millimeter sockets, 6 and 8 millimeter Allen sockets, the TerraFlex wrench that's included in the kit, 19 and 18 millimeter crescent wrenches, a flathead screwdriver, some locking pliers or vice grips, a cutting wheel, a 1/2-inch bit, and a smaller bit for making a drill pilot hole, a center punch, pliers, trim removal tool, and a drill. All right guys, now we're about to get into the install here. Now as you can see, we have our Jeep up on a lift. If you have access to a lift, that's awesome. These are a lot easier to work with, but if you're doing this at home, by all means, you can get this job done in your own garage or driveway using a floor jack and jack stands. Just make sure that you have your Jeep in a stable configuration. And if you're only lifting up one end at a time, chalk the wheels at the other end and make sure that your jack stands are under good solid portions of the frame. Then use your floor jack underneath your axle to manipulate it up and down as needed, following the directions along as we go here in the video. So right now, we're gonna go ahead and get started by removing our shocks. As you can see, I've got some gloves and I've got some eye protection on. Anytime I work underneath a vehicle, I like to put this kind of stuff on because you get some flying debris, dirt, whatever, rust sometimes, especially with Jeeps. So once the tools start flying, a lot of that debris starts flying. So go ahead and get that stuff on and let's get started. All right guys, now first step here, we're gonna take this bolt out on the lower end of our factory shock. As you can see, I got a pull jack right here. So at this point, support your axle with whatever you're using. If you're using a floor jack, get that underneath the pumpkin or right underneath the differential on your axle, because as we start to take this bolt out, the shock's gonna wanna pull up on it, so you're gonna want that jack underneath your axle to lift it up a little bit. So the tools I'm using on here is an 18 mil crescent and an 18 mil socket. All right guys, for the top, you have an 18 mil socket right here on the bolt. It's a captured nut on the other side, so we don't have to put a tool on that side of the fitting. All right guys, I'm gonna try and get this bolt out of here with my left hand, and I'm holding the shock with my right hand, because once you get this out, the shock's gonna wanna fall. Just a little tight there with your fender liner. Okay, using the same tools, you can repeat those steps over on the passenger side to get the other front shock out, guys. Now the next step here is we're gonna remove our sway bar end links, and we're gonna start on the bottom fitting. For this, you're also gonna need an 18 mil crescent and an 18 mil socket. All right guys, now on the front passenger side, on the lower part of our sway bar end link, there's a flag nut right here, so we're not gonna need to put a tool on that. You just need an 18 mil socket right here on the bolt. It's a little tight in here, so I'm gonna use a hand tool. And take your flag nut out of there. All right, now to get the top part of our link out, you're gonna need a 6mm Allen socket or a large Allen key if you have one to get it into that part of the bolt. And that's to stabilize the bolt, because we can't put a tool on the left-hand side here as you're looking at it. And you're also gonna need an 18mm crescent wrench, or in this case, I have a ratcheting wrench to put on this bolt right here. And this is one of the more challenging aspects to this install. It's a little bit tight working in here, but you can definitely do it. Once you get it loosened up, you can work both tools at the same time. It'll go a little bit faster for you. All right guys, now on the driver's side here, same as we just did on the passenger side, we're gonna use an 18 mil ratcheting wrench here and a 6 mil Allen socket. All right guys, with both our end links removed, go ahead and push your sway bar up out of your way. And we're gonna go after the track bar bolt right here. This is the axle side, or axle end of the track bar. And to get this out, we're gonna use a 21mm socket. When this comes loose, guys, you're gonna see the axle shift just a little bit. That's normal. Just make sure you have your axle supported. All right guys, now at this step, what we're gonna do is you're not gonna use this bracket anymore that holds your brake line to the control arm. We're gonna be getting a new bracket with this TerraFlex kit. But in order to remove this brake line that's kind of pinched in there, we're gonna have to use a cutting wheel to kind of weaken that part of the metal that curves up and over the line so we can pry it open with some needle nose pliers or a similar type of tool like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove it off the control arm first, and so we can bend it and get it away from these other things. We don't want to nick any of these lines with the cutting wheel for obvious reasons. That would be bad. So right now, to get this off, we're going to need a 15mm socket to get this nut off of the frame here. Now this bracket comes out like that, and you can see here with the slack, I can hold it out here like this. If you have any other lines here that are attached, go ahead and kind of separate those and tuck those up out of the way. All right guys, so now I'm holding this bracket with my right hand. I've got a cutting wheel here. You could also use like a Dremel tool or some other similar type of cutting instrument. And again, I'm just gonna cut a little bit up here and just enough material away that I can pry this open. You don't want to cut all the way through and nick the brake line, obviously. All right guys, now we got enough of this material ground off here using the cutting wheel. It's warm, it's gonna make the steel bend a little bit easier, plus we've thinned it out obviously. So, there you go. All right guys, now we're gonna create a little bit of slack here as we drop our axle here in a moment. We're gonna disconnect this wiring harness here on our differential. There's a lock tab that you probably can't see on camera right now. It's kind of on the inside of this, a little gray lock tab. Use a flat blade screwdriver just to kind of pull that out like that. Once you have that pulled out, you can pinch it and back that out. And now we're going to disconnect the vent tube next. All right, you have a little pinch clip up here. Grab your needle nose pliers. Just kind of pinch this clamp, loosen it. All right guys, now we're going to disconnect this wiring harness. Again, you have a lock tab here. Pull out like that. All right guys, now at this step, we're going to start lowering the axle so we can get the springs out. Just go around, double check, make sure all of the brake lines and other electrical lines that you have attached to your axle have been disconnected so you'll have enough slack to drop the axle. So go ahead and make sure you do that evenly. You don't want your axle tipping and getting off balance. So let's go ahead and start lowering it right now. And I don't know if you can hear that on tape, but as you are lowering this and your springs start to come loose, you're going to start hearing some cracking and popping. That's noise coming from the base of where the spring connects to your axle. That's just letting you know it's starting to come loose, so we're close. All right guys, once you've lowered it to the point where the spring is nice and loose, you should be able to get it out at this point. And then go ahead and repeat that on the passenger side as well. After you get your springs out, go ahead and remove the factory plastic spring perch. We're gonna have new ones in the kit here. And do that on the other side as well. All right guys, now we have our factory components off of our Jeep. I'm gonna throw them on the table here and do a quick side-by-side comparison, just taking a quick look at old versus new. It's pretty much a direct swap out. We're even getting rid of the old spring perch right there that maybe you heard it on video as we were dropping the axle a little bit. There was a little bit of crackling noise coming out. You know, these get a little brittle over time, especially if they've seen some hard use. You've got a little bit more robust perch coming from TerraFlex here. It's gonna be a nice fresh piece going on the axle. And obviously we're getting a longer spring here, and that's what's gonna preserve that flex that we're looking for the suspension articulation when we're out there in the trails. Other than that, a longer sway bar link and a bump stop we're gonna be adding as well. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right guys, now this stage of the installation, we're gonna be putting the springs up into the Jeep. Now these springs are much longer obviously than our factory springs, and if you've drooped your axle as far as it can go, and that's what we've done here with the setup that we have between the lift and the pole jacks, you might not quite have enough of a gap there to get the springs up in. So you have a couple of options. You can start loosening a lot of things, your control arms, you can disconnect your drive shaft. There's a lot more work involved there. Now maybe you have a different setup with your floor jack and your jack stands and you're not running into this issue. So it kind of depends on how you're lifting your Jeep and how you're manipulating the axle. The way we have it set up here, I'm going to need to compress the spring a little bit. So I have this spring compressor here, and I realize this is not something that most people have in their toolbox. If you need one of these, obviously you can sign one of these out or rent one at your local auto parts store. Pretty much all of them have that. And what you're going to do and how these work is they basically have these clamps right here that clamp onto the coils, and they have these locking pins right here that prevent the coil from popping out from the clamp. Now I'm going to use a pneumatic wrench here, and we're going to use a 19 mil socket on this bolt here, and as we tighten this down, it's going to compress the spring, and all we need is about 2 to 3 inches of compression on this in order to slide it up into place. All right guys, before we do anything with the spring, go ahead and grab a brand new spring perch and get it mounted into place there. All right guys, now with the spring compressed, we're ready to put it up in there. Now, keep in mind when you put the spring into place, you're gonna have to have your lower bump stop inside the spring as you put it up in there, because once the spring's in place, you're not gonna be able to get this through the coils. Now, you'll notice in the kit, you get this large round bump stop, and then there's a couple of small slices that go on, or go underneath this, I should say, and that depends on what kind of Jeep you have and what size tire you're going to be putting on. This happens to be a JL Rubicon, and we're going to be putting 35-inch tires on later. So in that scenario, we're just using the single bump stop, but make sure you are checking the documentation in the kit and making sure you're mating up what bump stops you're using to the type of JL that you have and the size tire that you're putting on your Jeep. And as you're getting your spring into place, make sure that the coil that wraps around at the end here is firmly up against that little wedge on the spring perch. And that's how you know you're going to have it seated properly. Now that we have it in there, we can go ahead and release the tension on our compressor. All right, now that we have the spring installed, you can go ahead and repeat that procedure over on the passenger side of your Jeep. All right guys, so this step we're going to fasten down the bump stop that we placed on the pedestal right here. Go ahead and grab one of these long yellow zinc coated bolts and a matching nut. And we're gonna feed the bolt in through the top. And just kind of move this around till it goes down through. Now you're gonna have this tool in your kit. You can seat the flange nut up on like that. And I've kind of modified it a little bit. This key works great, but it's very short and you don't have very good leverage, and it gets kind of tight up in here with your hand. So I'm grabbing the end of it here with a pair of vice grips. It makes it a lot easier. And then you're gonna need a 6mm Allen socket for the bolt itself. And as you tighten this down, follow the torque specifications in the instruction booklet, because there is one specified for this part. All right guys, now after we have our bump stops put in, we're gonna raise the axle back up and reconnect the sway bar links using the new ones included in the kit. Now, the sway bar links that go in here are the shorter ones compared to the other pair that are gonna be longer in the rear of the Jeep. So you can pull this sway bar down. You want to make sure you have clearance from this bracket here so you can get a tool in to tighten up the nut on here. But we're going to go ahead and raise up the axle a little bit. You want to make sure that your spring is nice and tight and that it's seated up top and that you can't move that around at all. Go ahead and grab one of your new sway bar links and feed it in up top here. And you can still manipulate your actual sway bar and make sure you're kind of lined up down here. Take the nut and start it up top. And that's a nylon thread locker nut, so you're only going to be able to get it so far with your fingers. But the thing about tightening this down is you would need to make sure you can be able to get your Allen socket in here as well as your wrench. So we're going to go check the other side to make sure we can line it up, since we can still manipulate our sway bar. As you can see here in the bottom, guys, we're about an inch off of where this is going to connect to this bracket. So we're going to start raising the axle up on this side as well. And one thing I want to call out to you as you do this, make sure your track bar isn't down. See, it has the ability right now to be all the way down here. And as we raise the axle back up, the track bar will bang into this bracket and you won't be able to get it above. So you're going to need to be able to get it up in this bracket right here eventually. So bring it up here and kind of tuck it off there. Make sure it's above the axle. Just something I want to call out to you guys. The other thing too is you can kind of see our spring is a little loose. Make sure it's seated up top as well as here on the bottom on the perch. And it looks like we have pretty good alignment there. We are going to be reusing our factory bolts on both sides on the bottom. And if you remember correctly, over here we have this set up here with a flag nut. So I'm going to go ahead and thread that in right now. All right guys, so now that we're back on the driver's side here, you can see by raising the passenger side of the axle, we've now messed up our alignment here, so I'm going to need to raise it up over here as well. All right, so now with everything started by hand, we're gonna go ahead and tighten them down. All right guys, now with this new hardware, you may remember this was an 18mm bolt from the factory. It's now a 19mm bolt, or nut, I should say, from TerraFlex. So grab that 19mm crescent, get it on there, and we're still gonna use a 6mm Allen socket to hold the stud still. And again, we're using the factory hardware here, so again, it's 18 and 18 on both sides, guys. Now, after you tighten these up, make sure you come back with a torque wrench. There are torque specs for both of these bits of hardware. Now we're gonna go to the other side. All right, now top side on the passenger side, again, 6mm Allen socket and a 19mm crescent for the new TerraFlex lock nut. Down here, factory hardware again, guys, so using an 18mm socket. And again, we have the flag nut there, so we only need the wrench. We don't need anything securing the nut. All right guys, now that we have the axle raised up a little bit, you can go ahead and start reconnecting your wiring harnesses and your differential vent tube. Once that plugs in, don't forget, click that lock tab into place. And again, the vent tube, you have this little pinch clamp right here. You have to get on there just enough so that the clamp has some of that tube to pinch onto. Okay. And if you have any of these little retaining clips popped out, go ahead and reconnect those as well. Okay guys, now at this stage of our lift installation, you have two options. You can either reuse your factory shocks if you have the appropriate extension brackets, or like we're doing for this build, you can get some aftermarket shocks that are specifically designed to go with a lift kit. All right, we start by hand, and once you can't pull it out anymore, you know you got it threaded. So go ahead and grab a tool, the 18 mil socket, and we're gonna tighten that down. All right guys, now down here at the bottom, again, reusing the factory nut and bolt. You can see we're not quite lined up, so go ahead and readjust your axle as needed. All right, now to tighten this down, again, we're using 18 millimeter tools on both sides here. Then go ahead and repeat these same steps over on the passenger side. Okay, so we've pretty much done everything we need to do to the front end except for reinstalling our track bar bolt. That's gonna be like the very last thing we do because the Jeep has to be down on its own weight in order to get the track bar lined up with the bracket. So we'll do that here in a little bit, but we're gonna move to the rear of the Jeep. And before we do that, just make sure you've reconnected anything you disconnected and go back through the TerraFlex instructions, which are excellent, by the way. And I do want to call out to TerraFlex on that. They do an excellent job of bagging their hardware and labeling what it's for, so it eliminates all the guesswork for this installation, and their instructions are excellent as well. Make sure you're following all the torque specs in those instructions. So with that said, let's go ahead and move to the rear suspension. All right guys, we're at the rear axle now. Obviously we're lifted up, we got the tires removed. I have the pull jacks. Now's the time you're gonna need to support your axle. Of course, if you're doing it with jack stands under your frame and then get your floor jack underneath the differential or the kind of pumpkin round part of your axle, get it supported underneath there, because that's where you're gonna need to raise and lower your axle as needed in this installation. So let's go ahead and get these factory shocks off the Jeep. All right guys, first thing we're gonna do to access the top bolt for the shock, we need to remove this plastic cover here, and to do that, we've got 3 screws that are 8 millimeters. I'm gonna remove those. Then just steady it with your offhand here, because once you get this last screw out, the plastic cover will fall off on you. All right guys, now to get this bottom bolt out for our shock, you're gonna need 18 millimeter tool on both sides here. Now if this bolt is tight on you, you might need to raise your axle a little bit. All right, now for the top bolt up here, it's an 18 millimeter as well. All right guys, now we have this shock out, you can go ahead and remove the panel and the shock over on the other side. All right guys, now in this shot, I'm gonna explain a couple things just to give you some context of where we're gonna be working next. And what we're gonna be doing is creating some slack in our emergency brake lines. And our next shot after this one is gonna be directly under the Jeep, and it might be a little bit hard to tell where we're working. We're gonna be removing a bolt and a bracket that basically hold the brake lines up tight up against the underside of the Jeep. And if we cut directly to that shot, it might be a little hard for you to understand where we're at. So I wanna point this out to you. Coming up off of our axle here, you have this thick line right here and this one here. And these are the emergency brake lines, and they go out to each brake at either end of the axle. If you trace these back upward to where they connect to the underside of the Jeep, there's a bracket under there, and that's the one we're gonna be undoing the bolt for and removing that bracket, and that's gonna create some slack, and I'll further explain the procedure from there. I just wanted to get you guys to get some context of where we're working. All right guys, now what you're looking at here is we're under the Jeep looking upward. Obviously this is our drive shaft right here, and above that, what you're seeing is a collection of fuel lines, and we're actually working above that. You might be able to see where the e-brake lines go into the underside of the Jeep, and just behind that in orientation on the Jeep is this bracket, and I have a 13 mil socket that I'm going to use to get this bolt out. And when you get it out, this is the bracket that we're looking at. All right guys, the next step in terms of creating slack in our emergency brake line, this is the brake line right here coming to the brake assembly. This pin right here that has a round end on it, we're gonna need to pinch that with our vice grips or other locking pliers, something like that, and keep the tool tucked up against this, and we're gonna pinch that. What that's gonna do is keep that pin from retracting back into the brake assembly. Then we're going to do the same thing over on the other side. All right, go ahead and release your e-brake, and that'll give you slack in the line here. You should be able to pull this out. Do the same thing over on the other side. All right guys, now we're going to slide this through like that. Get that free, and do the same thing on the other side. So once you've disconnected both sides, if there are any other cables, like the electric cable for your rear locking differential that are clamped to these e-brake lines, go ahead and separate those, because we're just going to take the e-brake lines only, and I'm going to feed it back up over this cross member on the frame. I'm just going to get that started just enough so I can grab it from the other side, and I'll do the same thing with this other cable right here. Then go around to the front side and pull those through. Okay, now go ahead and grab onto these and pull them through. So basically what you want to do, guys, is run these down so they go underneath these fuel lines and underneath that cross member. So once you pull that through, you can feed it back up and over towards the brake assembly, where we're going to reconnect it in a minute. And we're going to do the same thing with this other one. All right guys, now we have it back here where we were before in this bracket. Go ahead and feed the cable through, and then push that through to a clicks like that. And go ahead and put that back in there, and repeat those two steps over on the other side. All right, once you have the cable reconnected, you can go ahead and remove your locking pliers or vice grips. Do the same thing on the other side. All right guys, we're going to remove our lower bolt on our sway bar link here. So you're going to need an 18 millimeter tool on both sides here. All right, now to remove the top portion here on this nut, you're going to need an 18 mil crescent and a 6 millimeter Allen socket. Then go ahead and repeat those steps on the other side. Okay, so we're gonna create some slack in our brake lines. There's a bracket right here, one on each side, and there's a 13 mil bolt right here we're gonna remove and pull that bracket out so we have some slack. All right, and go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. All right guys, now making absolutely sure you have your axle supported, we're gonna go ahead and remove the bolt at the axle end of the track bar. And this is a 21 millimeter tool you're gonna need right here. All right guys, now we're also going to need to create slack here with the electrical line that's for the rear locking differential and the vent tube for our differential. So to get this out, just need to pull this lock tab out, pinch that, then pinch this bracket here, or clamp I should say. And kind of tuck those out of the way. All right, now that we've created slack on all our brake lines and electrical lines, you can go ahead and start lowering your axle. If you're doing it with a floor jack, it'll be easy to do it evenly. If you're using pull jacks like I am, you just need to make sure you're kind of adjusting them, not quite simultaneously, but a little bit to each side so that you have a nice even lowering. And then go ahead and get your passenger side one out as well. All right, since we have our factory springs and sway bar end links off of the rear of our Jeep, I just wanted to throw them on the table, real quick side-by-side comparison. Obviously there's not a lot to go on here other than the fact that our new stuff here from TerraFlex on the right-hand side of your screen, we have longer sway bar links, obviously, as well as a longer and slightly beefier spring. Other than that, there's not a whole lot more to compare here, guys. So let's go ahead and get this stuff mounted up. All right guys, now we're gonna go ahead and put our new TerraFlex springs in. One thing I need to call out to you is that the rear springs are side specific. And TerraFlex, like I mentioned earlier in this video, does an excellent job documenting their instructions as well as labeling their parts and packaging them in a way so that there's no confusion. You know exactly what bits of hardware are used for what. And the same thing goes for the springs. So for these rear springs, they have it printed on the side here with a code number as well as the letters L for left and R for right, left being driver's side. And that's so you know which side the springs go on, which is important, like I said, because they're side specific. So go ahead and grab this rubber isolator and get it seated so that this little nub is up against the end of the coil. And we're gonna go ahead and push it up into place. Then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. All right guys, the next part of the install is we're going to mount our track bar relocation bracket, which basically goes on right here. And we're going to need to drill 2 holes here on the side, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. So go ahead and grab one of the bolts and nuts that go with this bracket, and we're just going to thread it on right now, just by hand, and that's just to hold this bracket in place while we mark the holes where we're going to be drilling. All right guys, now to mark these holes, I'm going to use a center punch. You could also use maybe a just some kind of pick or a more pointed Phillips head screwdriver, just something to just kind of leave a mark right in the center of the hole. And we'll do it a couple times. Now that we have the center marked, we're going to drill a pilot hole first, which is a smaller gauge hole. That'll allow us to use the bigger drill bit. And if you don't do that, the drill bit is going to have a tendency to kind of wander on you, and all of a sudden you're not going to get a nice clean hole drilled out. All right guys, I'm going to step up in drill bits. I'm not going to go directly to the one we're going to finally use, which is a 1/2 inch bit, because that's quite a bit larger than the pilot hole I started here. So I'm just stepping up to a bit size that's kind of in between the one I just used to start these holes and our 1/2 incher. All right guys, I'm actually gonna switch sides here because with the length of my bit, it's kind of pushing my drill right up against our brake caliper. So you have access to it from the center of the Jeep. I'm gonna drill it from here. All right, now go ahead and get your bracket up into place. Now in the kit, you're gonna have these shorter bolts. Go ahead and put them through the holes you just created. And start a nut on there. All right, once you have these bolts started, we're gonna use a 16 mil crescent here and an 18 mil socket on the nut side. All right guys, now go ahead and grab one of these longer bolts out of the kit and a nut that goes with it, as well as this aluminum spacer that's gonna go up in here like this to prevent the bracket from pinching too much together. So go ahead and thread the bolt in through the back here. Have your spacer up inside and ready. Now to tighten these down, go ahead and grab an 18 millimeter crescent for the bolt, and you're gonna need a 21 mil socket for the nut. All right guys, now we're gonna line up the axle end of the track bar to the top hole here, and might just have to play with it a little bit, might have to adjust your axle a little bit, but go ahead and start the bolt through the back side. You can kind of wiggle your axle a little bit. As you saw guys, that takes quite a bit of adjustment there to get that just right, but once you have that bolt threaded through, go ahead, get your nut on there. And again, 21 mil socket here and an 18 mil crescent on the back. All right guys, now we can start reassembling the brackets here that are holding our brake lines. We don't need that much slack anymore, so we're gonna do this one on this side and then the one on the other side. Just kind of slide that back into place and reuse the factory bolt here. And you can tighten it up using a 13 millimeter socket. Then do the one on the other side as well. All right, then we're going to reconnect our vent tube here to our axle. And you can plug this wiring harness back in as well. All right guys, now to get our bump stops mounted up here on this pedestal that's on your axle, first we need to grab these brackets out of the kit. Now there are only 2 holes up on top of this pedestal, and as you'll see in your bracket, there are 2 pairs of holes. So what you're gonna wanna do is when you put this up on top of the pedestal, you're gonna wanna have a hole between the holes that we're actually gonna use and the outer end of the axle, if that makes sense. So basically we're gonna be threading bolts through the right side as you're looking at it. So go ahead and get that lined up top here, then grab these short button head bolts out of the kit, and we're gonna thread those through as well as using these lock nuts. I'm kind of threading that through on the bracket. They're not just gonna drop through. So I'm just gonna get that started there a little bit. I'm gonna start this one through the back. That one kind of dropped into place. Might just have a little bit of extra coating on there that might be causing it to kind of bind up. But before you drop the bolt down too far, it's going to come into the axle here, so you're going to need to get your nut up in there and get it started. Now to cinch these down, you're gonna need a 14 mil crescent wrench for the nut here in the bottom, and then we're gonna grab our 6mm Allen key for the button head bolt. And you can repeat that on the other side. All right guys, now in the literature that comes with your bump stop kit, make sure that you are using the right number of pads. Obviously, this is the basic big block here, and then they have the smaller kind of like shim or plastic plates that will make it higher. That depends on what size tire you're gonna put on your Jeep and what base model you have for your Jeep. So we have the combination of Rubicon, and this Jeep's gonna end up with 35-inch tires on there. So all we need is this single bump stop here. Now, to get this mounted on, you're gonna need to grab one of these. These is basically like a nut plate because these holes are threaded here. So once you get your block mounted into place, you slide this in here like that. And then we're gonna use these Allen bolts with lock washers to thread up from the bottom. Get the other side started. All right, so to cinch this up tight, go ahead and grab an 8mm socket, or I should say 8mm Allen socket for this. Then you can go ahead and repeat these steps over on the other side. All right guys, now to reattach our brand new sway bar end links from TerraFlex, you're gonna wanna grab the longer of the two sets. The shorter set went on the front end. And we're gonna orient it like this. This is gonna go up top here, so go ahead and grab one of these bolts as well as a black lock nut. We're gonna start that up top first. And go ahead and call your sway bar down from above. Bring it into place. And to cinch this down tight, we're going to use a 8mm Allen socket on the bolt and a 19mm crescent wrench on the nut. Make sure you torque that to spec according to TerraFlex's instructions. Now from the bottom here, we already have it mounted into place, and you should have a nylon lock nut for this fitting. Go ahead and start that on there. And go ahead and get your 19mm crescent wrench on there first. And we're gonna use a 6mm Allen socket for this fitting. Go ahead and torque that one to spec as well, and then repeat the procedure on the other side. All right guys, now at this stage of our install, about all we have left is to mount up our rear shocks. We're gonna reuse our factory bolts for this. So go ahead and grab whatever aftermarket shock of choice you've decided to put with your lift kit and get it mounted on. All right guys, now we have it hanging and we have it started up top. I didn't tighten it down yet just in case we need a little wiggle room to get it mounted up. Go ahead, it's gonna be a little snug. Get that up in there. And it's probably not gonna line up as is. You might need to adjust the height of your axle a little bit, and I'm gonna need to droop mine just a little bit. And we can get our bolt started. All right guys, now to cinch this up, you're gonna need 18mm tools on both sides. And we're using an 18mm up top here as well. Go ahead and repeat that on the passenger side. All right guys, go ahead and reinstall this trim panel. And tighten these 3 screws down using an 8mm socket. And repeat that on the other side. All right, so we finished up here at the rear end. We're gonna mount up our tires and get our Jeep back down on its own weight. And that's pretty much the only way we're gonna get our front track bar to line up with the bracket. So once we get that, we'll show you how to get that bolt fitted back in there, and we'll tighten it down to factory spec. All right guys, now obviously we have the wheels and tires back on our Jeep and it's down on its own weight. Here's where we're gonna be threading our bolt back in for the track bar, and it's not quite lined up. So I have a friend who's gonna hop in the driver's seat and he is going to turn the wheel, and that will help line this up where we need it to go. All right, that's good. Now that we have it started just by hand, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a 21mm socket and we're gonna tighten it up. And make sure you torque that down to spec. And don't forget to get a professional alignment done once everything is finished on this lift kit, guys. So that pretty much wraps up this review and install of this TerraFlex 2.5-inch base suspension lift kit for all 2018 and later Jeep Wrangler JLs. For all things Wrangler, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.